everybody, welcome back to Let's Talk, and welcome to the Let's Talk Review Show. This is the monthly show where I do all of my channel director and all of my channel bankroll member reviews. This month we happen to have 5 reviews for you guys. We're going to be reviewing Gung and its brand new Kino Lorber Blu-ray. We're going to be reviewing Irena's Vow. Also, we're going to be reviewing Audition and Sleepless, directed by Dario Argento. And finally, we'll be reviewing Terrestrial Visitors for Kevin Kruger. We're going to start it off, though, with Gung Ho, the 1986 film directed by Ron Howard and starring Michael Keaton, and it actually happened to have a brand new Kino Lorber Blu-ray that just came out, so we'll talk about that as well. So this review is for Stone Gas Man, who is our channel director, and this is a movie I actually have seen. I just haven't seen it in a very long time, to the point that I don't remember this film at all. But after rewatching this movie, yeah, I can kind of see why people didn't want Michael Keaton to be Batman in the 1980s. I couldn't imagine it myself, seeing this guy, you know, seems like just the lovable guy, kind of the lovable, funny guy, always making jokes, gets along with everyone. Can't imagine that guy being dark and scary and being, you know, Tim Burton's Batman. Plus, you know, he really isn't that tall. I get it, but, you know, he is still the greatest Batman of all time, just proving everybody wrong. In this movie, he just plays a regular guy, but his town happens to have the big factory shut down. There was one other business that shut down as well. So there's only really 2 big businesses in this town, and when the factory gets shut down, that's it. They really have no work for a lot of people. So Michael Keaton goes over to Japan. He's going to talk to a big company, try and influence them to come over to the United States and buy up this factory and, you know, get it going again, get it making cars again. That's what it's going to be all about. And you know what? He doesn't convince them at first, but they finally do come around. They're going to send their boy Kaz over there. I'm not going to say his whole name because I will just butcher the hell out of it, but he's played by Getty Watanabe in this movie phenomenally, by the way. This guy's just trying to prove to his boss, I think it's also his father-in-law or something like that, that, you know, he can do it. Oh no, it's his uncle. He wants to prove to him that he can do it. He can run this factory. He can turn it into a successful business. Of course, he's getting some pushback from the Americans. The Japanese want to run this like a Japanese company who are very successful at running companies. In their factories over in Japan, they can pump out 15,000 cars in a month. Here in America, they're like, hey, you know what? 13,000 seems fair. We don't get the full raise at the 15,000, but hey, 13,000 we get a half, which actually, unfortunately, turns out not to be true, because Michael Keaton's position in this whole thing is kind of like the middleman. He's middle management. He's the pathway to the big bosses, but he's also, you know, a regular guy. He was somebody who worked on the line before he got this position, so he's supposed to like smooth things over between everyone, but unfortunately, he bends the truth, and I mean, he lies and doesn't tell these guys that if you don't hit those 15,000 cars, there is no raise, because, you know, the big bosses want to shut this place down unless you get 15,000 cars. Now, this is a 1980s movie, so you can imagine exactly how this film is going to end, and it ends that way, but it's got all the 1980 tropes that I absolutely love. You know, we get plenty of montages in this one. Michael Keaton just being a great comedian, overusing the word babe, which I love. I don't know, we should bring that back. You know, it's just Michael Keaton doing Michael Keaton things. You know, this is really what he was in the 1980s. Even the year Batman came out, he's in The Dream Team, which is another one of these like comedies where he plays a very similar role that he plays in here. You know, just that energetic guy, the leader, and it works for him. He kind of has his own little stereotype. That's why people were so worried about him being Batman. It makes a lot of sense after watching Gung Ho again, and I really enjoyed it. It's a fantastic film. It's actually shot very well. I was surprised at that. You know, this really had a very cinematic look to it. A lot of interiors. You know, a lot of it could be this Blu-ray. You know, it came from a new 4K scan, but it looked really, really good. It actually made me hope that this would come to 4K Blu-ray eventually, but I think I can see the writing on the wall. The reason why this only came to Blu-ray is probably because they don't think this is going to sell very well on 4K, and I guess it probably costs a little bit of too much money to print this on disc. This is coming out August 19th, same day that Happy Gilmore was coming to 4K Blu-ray. Earlier this year in comedies, we got Billy Madison on 4K Blu-ray, and earlier in the year we got Uncle Buck on 4K. So why not this? This is very similar to what happened with Fletch last year. So I imagine, you know, they just probably see these as movies worthy of the 4K scan, but not worthy of being printed on 4K disc. So we only get it on Blu-ray. And you know what? It's not really a bad deal, because this Blu-ray looked phenomenal. Still hits the deep blacks, and you know, I am upscaling with my Panasonic, and my TV can upscale very well as well. I have an LG OLED, so it still looked great. It's just high dynamic range would have made a lot of difference here, I think. Dolby Vision, you know, there's a lot of colors in this movie that really would pop off the screen with that. You know, a lot of lights. Like, it would just be a lot nicer if this had the 4K Blu-ray upgrade. But it It is a very good Blu-ray, and it's priced at, I think, 18 bucks brand new, and that's pretty fair because it looks great. It does have 2 audio tracks, a 5.1 and a 2.0, audio commentary, and actually 2 interviews. I don't think they're new interviews, but it does have 2 interviews, and that's 2 more interviews than Billy Madison got. So thumbs up there, Kino, getting a little bit better. I just wish you would do this with, all of your releases. And I mean, still, 2 extras, it's still kind of a joke, but at least it's something. At least, they're doing something for these comedies. The really comedies, unfortunately, still get the shaft from these major studios, like even the boutique studios, where they just don't view them as money makers on physical media. And I guess I can see that too, because comedies don't really have the best views here on YouTube as well. And I think that just comes down to the fact that comedy is so subjective. Like, I found Gung Ho really funny, but a lot of people might watch this in 2025 and feel like, some of those jokes aren't very politically correct, and I can see that, but you got to put yourself in the time. It's 1986. Maybe some of those jokes aren't as funny now, but they're still pretty funny, and I think that some people might not see it that way. Some people might not just enjoy this type of comedy, and I understand that. Like I said, comedy is very subjective, but I do think this is a really good movie, and the Blu-ray itself is actually very good, so I can recommend checking that out. If I was going to give the Blu-ray and the film a score of 1 to 10, I'll give it a pretty damn solid 8 out of 10. Thanks, Stone Gas, man. I appreciate it, buddy. Next up, we got our channel bankroll member, Mr. Smelly Potatoes Choice Review, and this was 2023's Irena's Vow. I think it was released internationally worldwide in 2024. This film was directed by Louis Archibald, which I actually was able to learn that name because of Face Off, where his name is something Archibald, but it stuck out in my mind, and I was like, I think I can pronounce that last name pretty well. Well, I think I can. Louis Archibald directed this film. It stars Sophie Nellis, I know I'm pronouncing that one wrong, and Doug Gray Scott. And Doug Gray Scott gives a standout performance in this movie. And this movie takes place during the Holocaust. Irena, who the main character is of this film, at the very beginning, she's trying to become a nurse when an attack happens on the hospital that she's working out. Then eventually we see that she is working under this major in the city that's, been overtaken by the Nazis. And the city eventually will, unfortunately take these Jewish people into the concentration camps, and we assume that they will kill them, but they're going to get everything out of them first. So Irena and this one other guy who works there, they're supposed to really keep their nose clean, stay out of it, because it's for their own safety too. So they just kind of pass things on to the Jewish people and what they're supposed to do. And then eventually, unfortunately, they're going to get kicked out of here. So Irena comes up with this plan because she's actually become the major's right-hand woman in this point, to the point that she is really trusted by him. She's going to hand everything to her. He expects her to be able to do everything. He even wants to get somebody to help her, because he's like, it's too much for you. But she's like, no, I can do it. I trust me. And the reason why she's able to do all this is because she has the Jewish people actually hidden in the basement of his house. The last place anyone is going to expect any Jewish people to be is inside a Nazi major's house. And there's much more to this story than just that. First of all the performances are great, but like I said, Doug Gray Scott gives a phenomenal performance in this film. One thing that's probably a really hard trick to pull off is to make you sympathize with a Nazi, and you start feeling a little bad for this guy because you can see the humanity behind him, even though he's doing literally the most inhumane things. But it's really Irena, the person who makes all the sacrifices. Everything she gives up for somebody else is absolutely something that should be admired. It's something that you wish people would do today. I think we all think in situations we would do this, but for the most part, we wouldn't. We don't have that actual real courage to do something like this. We all hope we would, but it's just not there. But she really does put literally her money where her mouth is in this situation for other people, a lot like Schindler's List, people who are willing to make those sacrifices, and they should be commended for it. In the movie itself, the only flaw I can actually say against it is, the cinematography and the whole movie. It could feel a little small in scope. There are some scenes like outside where, it does feel bigger and it feels like it is World War II and everything is happening. But, for the most part, it takes place in interiors. And there's a really shocking scene that does take place outside that, really tells you how dark this movie can be. But for the most part, it's like dialogue driven inside, and like the colors feel a little flat, feels a little indie filmish to me, feels a little small in scope. And that's the biggest flaw I can say about this film, because other than that, it is a very well done film with great acting. Really enjoyed it overall, so I could definitely recommend this film. So I was going to give Irena's Vow a score of 1 to 10. I'm going to give this one a pretty damn solid 9 out of 10. It's a great great film. Next up, we're going to talk about Frank from Frank's Media and Reviews Director's Choice Review, and that is for 1999's Audition. This one was directed by Takashi Mike. I know I'm ruining that name, and I am sorry. And this is one of the big J-horror films that came out in the 1990s. Obviously, probably the most famous one is Ringu, because that eventually became 2002's The Ring, directed by Gore Verbinski, which is one of my all-time favorite horror films. Obviously, to some people who love J-horror, especially like Frank, they probably think Ringu and its sequels are better than that, and I get that. But for me, The Ring is still a very special horror film, especially of the early 2000s, but I had never seen Audition. This did not get an American remake, so this is the only version of this film, but this always does get roped in with those classic J-horror films of the late 1990s, and it's one that always has slipped by me. I'm somebody who is, unfortunately, a lot of big blank spots for me are in the horror genre, mainly in foreign horror films, so a lot of J-horror films and a lot of Giallo films, which we'll talk about a Giallo film in a minute. Those ones, unfortunately, I have missed out on a lot of them. Luckily, I had people like Frank to recommend these kinds of films, and I finally caught up to Audition, and yeah, I could see what all the hype is about when it comes to this movie. First of all, just in the opening scene, it's beautifully shot, it's like, magic hour coming through the windows of this hospital. This young boy's running in, and we see it's a cake that says, "Get well soon, Mom." As we see this happening, we see a husband and wife. The wife is about to die, and literally, she dies holding his hand as the kid walks in, saying, "I got a cake for Mom." It's like literally heartbreaking, just like pulling your heart out of your chest in the opening moments of this movie. Then we jump forward and we see that the husband hasn't moved on, hasn't remarried, but he wants to get back out there. His son's gotten older, he's getting into a relationship, good for him, but he hasn't gotten anyone, and he wants to, and his buddy recommends, "Hey, why don't we do an audition for a movie?" Obviously we're not going to make a real movie, but hey, we can audition these girls to be, your future wife. I guess they move on with marriage pretty damn fast here. I don't know, different cultures. But anyway, they're going to audition him, and he finds somebody during the essay period who really stands out to him. Somebody who maybe can relate to him, because he's a very lonely man. This is really about lonely people in this movie, about like what they will do to find love, the things that they will overlook when they're, staring blankly at you. Unfortunately for this guy, he doesn't realize what's about to happen to him. So, he auditions all these people. He ends up, finding that girl. That's the one. It was number 29 out of 30. So he had to wait all day, simmering through these other people. A lot of freaky people in there. But lands on her. Of course, he's gonna pick her. There's gonna be there's gonna be no movie, but they want to move on with their relationship. They want to continue with that, and I'm gonna stop right there as far as talking about the film and just tell you that there is some great body horror sequence in there, a phenomenal third act. That everything that built up to it was almost damn near perfect. Like I said about that opening scene, how beautiful it looked, all that beautiful cinematography is throughout the rest of this film. I left this movie feeling very satisfied, let me just say. I absolutely love this movie. It's one that I believe has an Arrow Blu-ray. I don't know if it has an Arrow 4K Blu-ray, but it's one I'll have to be adding to my collection. I really love this movie. It made me appreciate a J-horror film that, it shouldn't have slipped by me. In 1999, one of the greatest years of film. This has been on many lists. I don't know why I kept overlooking it. It's just, I guess, personal prejudice when it comes to, like, J-horror film. I don't know. It's just, I don't know what it is. I don't know how this one got by me, but it really shouldn't have. This is a phenomenal film. If I was going to give this one a score of 1 to 10, I'm going to give this one a 9.5 out of 10. Next up, we're going to be talking about 2001's Sleepless, directed by Dario Argento, and this was Dario Argento's return to Giallo horror films, Italian horror films. Really what the guy's most known for, making movies like Deep Red and Suspiria. This is what, this is right in his wheelhouse, and he gets Max von Sydow, one of the world's greatest actors, to star in it. Always love seeing Max von Sydow, especially, like late career Max von Sydow, still great. This is 1 year before he did Minority Report. That's an English film. This one is not in English. This movie, though, has a lot of the great Giallo tropes, which, like I just said, I'm not an expert in Giallo or J-horror, but I'm getting better, and thanks to Frank and Uncle V here, I'm able to check out these kinds of movies. And this is one, I had mixed reviews, and I was curious to why, but then I watched the movie, I'm like, didn't warrant it. This is a very good Giallo film. This is a very good horror film in general. I absolutely loved it. There was a bunch of murders from all these years ago. 3 people died, and then Max von Sydow, who was the head detective on that, just assumed that that person had died, and that's why that serial killer had stopped. Now, a string of more murders start happening, and it seems to be the same person, but it just can't possibly be, so it must be a copycat murderer. And this is about one of the victims of these murderers years ago who saw his mother get murdered right in front of him. And you know, just as far as body horror goes, man, I mean, the knife going into the woman's head and then like pulling it out and their head like jerking forward and back, like absolutely insane. But this is a giallo film, and so you're going to have that very red blood in here throughout. It's going to be very gory, but not as gory as some other giallo horror films or even some other Dario Argento films. So toned it back a little bit. It's actually more of a noir film in a lot of ways, you know, much more of a mystery film, like trying to solve it. And, you know, it almost pulls like a Deus Ex Machina at the end, like a lot of giallo horror films like try to pull off, you know, just that out of left field ending, like that person you didn't see coming. But this one still made a lot of sense, so it's not full Deus Ex Machina, but it was like, shit, couldn't have predicted that one. And overall, this is another really good film as far as the giallo horror films go. It's one that I'm definitely getting into a little bit more. I really appreciated this one. I was very surprised that people were so down on it. If I'm looking at the reviews from back in 2001, I'm not entirely sure why that is. Maybe they just were not into these kinds of films at the time. It definitely does feel like an early 2000s film, which is kind of strange. You know, most of his films have that 70s, 80s tone to it. This definitely feels like a film made in the early 2000s. You know, that certain feel to it, just kind of wrapped up in like Dario Argento's kind of view. I mean, this guy's so influential on people making movies today. Malignant is a more recent version of like an homage to what Dario Argento was doing. And I really do enjoy these kinds of films. I don't know why they keep slipping by me too. Again, it's just I have to start getting more into foreign horror films. That's all it really boils down to. This is another good one. If I was going to give this one a score of 1 to 10, I would give this one a pretty solid 8 out of 10. And the last film we're going to talk about today is Extraterrestrial Visitors, and this is for our channel director, Kevin Kruger. This one is a 1983 E.T. ripoff. That's exactly how he recommended the film to me, and I decided, you know what, of course I'll check this out. I love E.T., my favorite Steven Spielberg movie, and yeah, this is like right in the same vein as Mac and Me, but this one, it's dubbed over, and the voices that they choose for it are, you know, usually dubs aren't great, but there's a child at the center of this movie. It sounds like a middle-aged woman, speaking like a middle-aged woman. The movie's supposed to take place in New England, but it's fucking filmed in, I think, I don't know, Spain or somewhere. Either wherever it is, it looks nothing like New England, so it's absolutely crazy to me if that's what this was supposed to be. It's supposed to be just like E.T., you know, a ship crashes and, you know, aliens come out of it, some of the worst practical effect looking aliens you'll ever see, with these long snouts. One of them turns out to be a, you know, an evil serial killing one, while the other one, you know, it's an egg. So at first he gets hatched, and then, you know, he starts eating and drinking, and he expands very, 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 very fast, ridiculous fast, unbelievably fast. But of course, you know, the little kid befriends him, just like E.T., and, you know, they're out there hunting this alien because it's killing people. And then, of course, what's going to happen? Well, there's the good alien. They're going to start blaming that one, start pointing fingers. And then you can imagine where this movie's going to go from there. The effects are absolutely atrocious in this movie. But just like a lot of those 1980s movies, even though it's clearly a ripoff of E.T., there's a certain charm to it. Like the score itself, I really enjoyed, even though it's like just generic 80s score number 24. Still liked it. Still liked the practical effects, even though they're bad. It's just something inside of me. I can appreciate, like, bad practical effects in comparison to like bad CGI. Bad CGI will always take me out of the movie. There's a charm to this to me, and I'm probably being a little bit biased. I'm sure plenty of people saw The Terminator and Poltergeist in the 1980s, and those scenes where, you know, they cut away to an obvious wax figure, you know, that's not Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's pretty damn clear, but that might take some people out of the movie. That never takes me out of the movie. And, you know, again, might be personal bias. I'm sure people watch like movies like, I don't know, The Core, and see that horrible CGI and think, you know, doesn't look that bad. And I think, are we looking at the same thing here? Because that looks like dog shit. So maybe I'm being a little bit biased, but this movie just flew by. It's entertaining as hell. It's one of those, you know, it's so bad, it's good. It's so bad, it's good that it's even got its own Mystery Science Theater 3000 episode when the movie was re-released under the name The Pod People, which I guess makes a little bit of sense because the name Extraterrestrial Visitors, clearly ETV. Come on, we know what you're going for here. You're not fooling anyone. So it makes a lot of sense. Kind of gave a like new resurgence in the film of people checking it out. Kevin actually told me that that's his favorite Mystery Science Theater 3000 episode. So I'm gonna check that one out because, like I said, it's not like this is a movie that's just bad to be bad. It's not boring or anything. It's entertaining as hell. You can watch it right now on Tubi. This is the perfect type of movie for Tubi. You know, the commercials aren't going to break anything up that bad. You can watch this movie on Tubi and you'll enjoy it. It's got that perfect, like, shitty look to it just for you to enjoy this kind of movie. If I was going to give this one a score of 1 to 10, I'm going to shoot it right down the middle and give it a 5 out of 10. I enjoyed this one. And I enjoyed all these movies this month. I really appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much for all the recommendations. Obviously, if you guys want to recommend something, you guys can join the directors or bankroll tier as well. We also have a friends of the channel tier and a producers tier. That's where you'll find John Doe Juggalo, Ben Rondo, and of course Harvey Scott. So I want to thank my producers as well as all my channel directors and bankroll members, and Nicholas Head, who is a channel director and never asks for his own choice review each and every month. I just appreciate that, buddy. Thank you so much. Thanks for supporting the channel, and of course thank you to all of you. Even if you don't have any money to throw my way, I don't mind at all. I just hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did, get out in those streets, tell your friends about us, and then we'll be seeing you around.